you to. It's fairly common. Again, you'll be dealing with appeals, and many people, many prisoners will be coming and saying to you that this sentence is harsh and excessive. As an appellate court, what do you consider if you come to the conclusion, and in fact in the case you appeal, the appellate court says the sentence was excessive? So what factors does an appellate court consider when it comes to the conclusion that the sentence is harsh and excessive?
Commissioner, I think one of the considerations would be if this was a first offender. This was the first time that they committed the offense. The second would be the mitigation that is given by the accused person. And the third, I think, I'm not very sure whether it's very strong, but the third one would be in looking at the sentencing guidelines and what they intend in terms of the prison's numbers and that kind of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So, Honorable, we have two schools of thoughts with regards to distinction between constitutional and statutory interpretation. There are those who believe that constitutional interpretation differs from statutory interpretation, and there are those who believe that there should be no distinction. Where would your school of thought lie, and why?
Thank you, Commissioner. I think my school of thought would be that there should be no distinction in both the interpretations, because you are interpreting a law, and the other one you're interpreting a constitution. The principles for interpretations for me would be the same. Yes.
And if you were to cite a number of constitutional provisions that would guide that school of thought?
I would say Article 10, Article 259. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Back to the question I know my colleagues have asked on the bang issue, that a person is found with bang worth 2,820, and you proceed to sentence the person to 30 years.
Yes.
You have said one of the principles you ought to look at is one of the documents that should guide you in sentencing is a sentencing guideline.
Yes.
Did you refer to this sentencing guideline at the time of sentencing this woman to 30 years imprisonment?
Yes, I did, Commissioner, and the sentence was supposed to be life. So I looked at the mitigation she had given me, and I thought instead of giving life, I give her 30 years. And I think, again, that time, we were still using the Murwatetu fiasco, and we were quoting Murwatetu extensively, and we were saying if it is mandatory, because for me I read it as a mandatory, the Supreme Court has declared it unconstitutional, but after the directions I wouldn't have gone that way.
Okay, and so you agree with the High Court decision that
Yes.
it was excessive?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. That will be all.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one or two questions or points of discussion. They want us to focus away from the law. And I've seen from the report from your referee that you are committed to public service. Very strong recommendation of commitment to public service. And Article 232 of the Constitution, they allowed 85 years that are very key for any public servant. Would you share with us two of those values and how you promote those values where you are? Two of those values.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think one is promoting devolution.
Devolution. If you look at Article 232, I want you to focus a bit more clearly. devolution is a good word thrown all the way, but I want you to look at the fair use and Article 232, and this is coming from your supervisor, that you are committed in public service. Okay, go ahead.
Because I wanted to say, Commissioner, that one of the ways that I've demonstrated this is the manner in which I've been able to carry out the process of devolution of the courts and in terms of the access to justice.
Okay.
The other one I would say is equality, where I treat every person equally. They are equal before the law, and that's the starting point before you do anything.
Okay. You aspire to go to the High Court. When I look at documents from the High Court, they have got one or two issues they call corporate identity. Corporate identity of the High Courts. Would you share with us two of those strategies that they want to promote to be able to enhance the High Court in terms of the public eye?
One of them, Commissioner, is the alternative dispute resolution, where they intend to use alternative means other than hearings of matters to adjudicate on matters. And the second one is enhancing virtual hearings, technology and
in your opening remarks, Honorable, you talked about you are very good. You said you must have ceremonials or something of those issues. I didn't know you are aware of what a brad is, how you are notified by the public. And they are very specific. If you look at the documents they have produced here about the High Court, reputation, how it is perceived by the public. And if I can give you some guidance, enforcement of the Code of Conduct, how would you do that? That is one of the things they have.
Enforcement of the Code of Conduct would, the first and the principal issue would be to ensure that I also, as a person, follow that code, and two, to disseminate it to the members of staff and to the members of public so that they are aware.
If I come to the High Court in Mombasa, you said you are the Deputy Registrar in the Court of Appeal in Mombasa?
Yes, I am, Commissioner.
What would strike me different from the other registrars in Kenya, in the Court of Appeal? One thing that will strike me in Mombasa.
The one thing that would strike you in Mombasa is that we have the charter. We have a charter that is placed right before the entrance, so that you're able to know what kind of services that we give. Yes.
Good. And the key resource area of the judiciary, number 7. Key resource area of judiciary. Again, the documents they have talked about enhancing the image of judiciary. And that is very, and I'm happy that you talked about the service charter. What else did you do to enhance the judiciary's image in Mombasa under the key resource area number 7?
Commissioner, I think one of the things that I would do to enhance the image of the judiciary is to conduct what we know as service weeks, and to have engagements with stakeholders.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, I am just, I've just checked your promotions, and I realized that even though you were hired on probation in 2010,
Yes.
your confirmation came 10 years later, and yet in between, you are promoted to resident magistrate, you are promoted to senior resident magistrate, you are promoted to principal magistrate. So what happened? And maybe it's not your problem, but it's good for me to know what happened.
Yes, we actually agitated for that. We realized at some point that we did not have confirmation letters. So we then inquired, and the same was done.
So it was a group of you?
It was a group of us, it wasn't me alone.
Okay. from our records, you are very, you sound like a social person. The commission talked about the lunches and all that. But how do you separate work as a judge and also your social activities, where it's very easy to get mixed up? And how do you do so to separate the two if you become a judge?
Thank you, Commissioner. One of the ways that I separate my work from my social life is to ensure that I minimize the social interactions that I have. The ones that I mentioned earlier are mainly the ones that involve the judiciary and the ones that would enhance and ensure that the judiciary works better. If we are able to reduce the friction between the lower cadre and the higher cadre, then we find that work would be easy in that sense. So that is the manner in which I try to enhance the social skills. But when it comes to the outside world, then it has to be very measured. If it is engagement with the stakeholder, then that is an engagement with the stakeholder.
How do you deal with difficult lawyers or even litigants who appear before you? Or you have not had a case where they are difficult?
There are cases where you get into a situation where advocates, I don't want to say they are difficult, but they would appear as if they are being difficult. But one of the attributes that I have is that I'm a very patient person. So I'm able to go through it slowly and be able to bring the parties to understand that we are here to resolve an issue and it is nothing personal. So it's one of the skills that I use to diffuse that kind of situation.
Okay. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, CJ. Good morning once again, Honorable.
Thank you, thank you.
So I don't want to take a lot of time with you. We've heard what you have to say, so I'll just go straight to your performance.
Yes.
I've looked at the report we have from DPOP.
Yes.
And it doesn't, your report is based on your work at Nyeri Law Courts.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the backlog situation there. It shows there's a concerted effort to reduce backlog, which is good, because out of 4,574 cases, only 315 are backlog, and only 30 are backlog older than 3 years, which is commendable.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you are not carrying your weight, because your input is in the station is 6% out of the expected 17%. I don't know what you have to say about that.
Okay. The situation in Nyeri was dire. At some point, we had 5 magistrates. We had 5 magistrates. 2 of us were deputy registrars, taking care of the registries.
So this is just judicial work. You're also doing deputy registrar work?
Yes, I double up in both.
Okay.
I do deputy registrar and I also go to court.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I'm looking at the case clearance rate in that court. It is quite high, higher than the national average. That is, let me just give the percentage. It is lower than the national average. It is 82% against a national average of 83%. And also the productivity is lower than the national average. That is 418 out of 529. What does it tell you about the performance of that station in general, that report?
Commissioner, like I had started, there was a time when we really had quite some problem with Nyeri in terms of the personnel that were there.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be the reason why those figures look that way. But I want to say that in terms of even bringing the percentages closer to the ones for the national, we really tried under the circumstances that we were in.
Mm.
We really tried to bring it up.
What were the challenges you're facing?
Like I said, there was a time when we were only 5 magistrates.
Mm-hmm.
One was mainly handling the children matters. The 2 of us, one was the deputy registrar in the High Court and doing judicial work, and myself in the Court of Appeal.
So the challenge was basically numbers?
Numbers.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. The other question I want to ask you is on case management.
Yes.
Why do you think case management is important in your work as a judge? Should you make it God willing?
I think it is essential. I think it's to me even the crux of the matter, because when you do case management, you are able to thrash out a lot of issues that usually clog up hearings of matters, so that by the time the matter is coming up for hearing, all the issues that would cause adjournments are no longer there. It also assists in alternative dispute resolutions, because at some point when you start doing case management, you realize this is not a matter that needs really to go for hearing, and for that matter then you would transfer it to the mediation or something like that. So I think it is very important for someone to do a case management, because in that case it will help you increase your productivity in terms of delivery of justice.
Okay, thank you. And as a deputy registrar, you've served as a deputy registrar for quite a while for several courts. Do you have a role to play in case management?
Yes, in fact, in the Court of Appeal, I think we were the cogs. We do the case management, and then so that we be able to thrash out these issues. So the role of the deputy registrar is key. It's crucial in case management, because you then free up the time for the judge to be able to handle the hearings.
Okay, thank you. Now, there's an issue that most DRs have been, let me not say complaining about, but concerned about. The fact that their work input is not very clearly measured. Now, you are here representing yourself and other DRs. I just want to hear your views or your suggestions on how we can both qualitatively and quantitatively measure the work of DRs.
Thank you. I think the work of the DR truly needs to be seen more than it's seen right now. I'm not saying it's not seen. And one of the ways to enhance this is to be able to tap into the roles that they have. For example, if a DR is doing taxations, that needs to be put into consideration, because it involves you writing a ruling on that taxation. When you do case management, also that needs to be tapped in, because there are a lot of directions that you give in terms of that case management that we do. So for my view is, some of these roles that the deputy registrars perform need to be culminated into some performance index that will then indicate that they are actually working. The way it is right now is that, it appears that you really don't do anything when you spend a lot of time, say for example, in case management or in taxations.
Okay, thank you. I want us to discuss briefly on corruption.
Yes.
You have not been working in any specific court. You've been doubling up in several courts as a DR.
Yes.
So I don't want to peg you to the report that we received from Nyeri. But I just want to get your views in general. The corruption prevalence index in the judiciary is at 7.03%. Really, the ideal situation should be zero, because we keep preaching about zero tolerance to corruption. So what ideas would you have that would help us maybe bring this to the desirable figure of 0%?
Commissioner, if I may use an analogy, they usually say if water drips in a certain place for a long time, it creates a hole. So for me, one of the strategies that we should have is to keep on speaking about this vice as much as possible until we create a dent within the institution. The second one, of course, is the reporting part, that we should continue encouraging reporting of these matters whenever they happen. And then my other view is also the engagement with stakeholders is very, very important, because sometimes you as a judge or as a judicial officer may not know that this vice is there, but the stakeholders may bring it to your attention that this is happening within your station. So that would be a good way of also curbing the vice.
Okay, thank you. Lastly, on community service,
Yes.
I've seen in your CV you said community service is a hobby, but you've not given us a lot of details. What exactly do you do in terms of community service, and why you think it is important to participate or engage in community service?
Thank you, Commissioner. I believe, my own self-belief is that I must give back to society. When I look at where I've come from to where I am right now, I think I'm very privileged, and I'm lucky to be where I am. So I do this as part of giving back to society that has nurtured me to where I am. So it's not something that I'm forced to do. It's something that I do out of my own free will, to the extent that it is almost a hobby. One of them is, for example, I managed to organize a football match between judicial officers and prisoners in Shimolatewa, with the then, may Lord rest her soul in peace, Commissioner Wanini. And it was just to be able to, just show the community that we are human and we think about them, we mind and go through whatever they go through.
So other than the football match, anything else you do for community service?
Yes, recently after I applied for this position, I was appointed to sit on the board of Mbale Boys, that's a boys' school next to my home. So we are planning a lot of activities with the boys just to ensure that the boy child doesn't get lost. And then the activities that I do with the Physicians for Human Rights, that's training, and I do a lot of training even for my colleagues, magistrates.
Okay, thank you. I have looked at your vetting documents. They are okay. We have reports on your background. The reports are not bad. You have a good grasp of the law. You have a listening ear, just like you have said. You have good administrative skills. You have well-reasoned and well-researched judgments and rulings. But there are concerns about how you conduct yourself in your social life, and concerns that you may love the bottle just a little bit more than average. I don't know what you would say about that.
I have recreational facilities, Commissioner, that I enjoy. I wouldn't say that I have done that to the extreme that would cause an alarm. I wouldn't say that.
Okay. But how then do you conduct yourself, at least in your private life, to ensure that there is propriety? There is no what should I call it, image. You don't create the image of impropriety as a judicial officer.
One of the ways, Commissioner, to do that is to limit your social interactions, as it were, so that you only are where you must be. Yes.
That's it.
That's what I would say.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, my lady. I wish you well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that interaction. I think that brings us to the end of the interview. But before we do so, we always like to ask the candidate whether you have any question also for the commissioners.
Thank you, Chief Justice. I don't think I have any question for the commissioners, just to thank you for the interaction we had. And I thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much on behalf of the commissioners. We wish you well.
Thank you
we
very
will
much.
get in touch with you when we complete the exercise.
Thank you very much.
Yes, all the best.